No, but seriously, man, Jordan, thanks for making the flight out here. It was a short conversation from all this stuff happening quick, you know what I mean? And then getting you out here. Thank you for coming. And I'm excited. You know what I mean? I am.
There's some exciting stuff happening in the world. And thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
You know, I met you, I think, in person at Ace Cafe in 2018.
Yep.
Yeah, you were there at that Performance Motors. I don't know what they called that. I don't remember, but it was like the performance meetup for Daytona in 2018, and there was a bunch of rad shops and people there. You know what I mean?
I think it was FXR Dyna Days East or something like that. Yeah. That was a good turnout. Yeah.
That place was packed, and there was a stunt show. There was a lot of heavy hitters out there at that time. But at that time, I'm trying to remember some things. I remember that you ran Baggers magazine.
Yep.
Right. But when we talked on the phone the other day, like you got a degree in, was it journalism? Is that the degree you get, or is it more like in branding and marketing, or like?
No. Yeah. That's interesting. Journalism, if you can believe it. Yeah. It's kind of a dying industry, but I guess at the time when I got the degree, it was like, 2006, 2005, 2006. I liked to write.
Yeah.
You know, and I had to pick something, right? So I picked that, and I, worked at the college newspaper of the school that I went to and fell in love with it.
For real.
Right? It was cool. It was like always something fresh, always something new, storytelling. I'm just curious by nature of people and cultures and just anything going on in the world. And it seemed like a natural fit, right?
Yeah.
So I started in journalism, and then in 2006, I think.
At the time, in 2006, the internet's off and running, and it's becoming less of just like this page that you go look at that's got like just words and a couple of pictures, to more of like you're getting close to that Facebook. Mm-hmm. Or MySpace and all that shit on, right?
Yeah.
What
Friendster.
All we were doing back in the day on the internet was downloading porn, fake LimeWire and Napster. Like it was a different place, right? But I guess when you're going to college for that and you're thinking about it, you don't see social media coming into your phone in your pocket. So the magazine culture, all this stuff is still so prevalent in that. And I think the only other thing that was kind of coming out was blogs, was starting to become a mainstream thing that people were kind of doing that, if that makes sense, It
totally does, yeah. And I think, at that time, and they would prep us in J school about, it's a new time, people aren't consuming a daily paper like they once did, magazines are still, doing pretty well, but obviously all of that kind of shifted.
Yeah.
With, the MySpace that would eventually evolve to more Facebook and Instagram and all the other channels that are out there now.
Yeah.
But I think people still want, good stories, and they still want to like explore things that are happening, whether it's, in the world or through social media or whatnot, who knows? But people are just still curious about what the hell is happening in the world. And I know it's a lot more readily available to them now in terms of what's distributed on social media, but, it's still a world that exists.
Yeah, it's like the content became quicker and more immediate.
Yeah.
That you would have put in a magazine. And so that I've always felt like finding out how to evolve the magazine to stay as a physical thing you hold, it almost had to reinvent itself to find a new purpose within the world of because you can't compete with the quickness of social media or a blog or a YouTube video or something like that, right? So, how do you take something that used to be the source of information, the review of the new BMW coming out or these new parts, like that's all been taken over by YouTube and, Instagram and shit. So, but yeah, that's cool. So you're going to school for that. And then did you go immediately into hot bike, or was there other avenues that you kind of went through first?
No, actually. So I graduated school, got an internship at a local to Southern California, a local alternative weekly called OC Weekly. And it was awesome. It was cool because it kind of focused on counterculture, you know, music scene, culture, art, you know, all kinds of like the non-status quo shit that was happening in the local communities of, you know, Orange County and LA.
Yeah.
And it was great.
Probably tons of different cool shit. I mean,
tons of cool shit.
So much culture comes out of that part of the country. So art, most of it comes out.
Yeah. Like my punk rock self at the time I was working there was like in hog heaven.
Yeah.
Didn't work out because they, you know, didn't have a position for me. So a friend of mine was working for, at the time, I got to go back, Prime Media, right? And we'll get through the course of all the different publishers that have owned Hot Bike over the years. But Prime Media was hiring for an associate editor, and it was going to work on Hot Rods Bike Works, Street Chopper, not Hot Bike at the time. And I kind of grew up around motorcycles. My uncle owns a dealership. I worked there during school, in high school and whatnot. You know, so I just always had a love for motorcycles. But I got an interview, and then, you know, I took the position, and I started off as an associate editor, worked under Frank Keisler. I don't know if you know who he is. He is just kind of a super genius when it came to like the motorcycle industry, motorcycles, how they work, just an encyclopedia of knowledge, and was kind of a huge mentor of mine in the beginning. And then Hot Bike needed somebody, and we were all under one roof. We were all under the Prime Media roof.
Yeah.
And Hot Bike needed somebody, and Hot Rod Bike Works and Street Chopper kind of didn't, right?
Yeah.
There wasn't enough to keep me busy. So Hot Bike, I moved over there.
What was your role? Like, what does that role entail as far as you say associate editor?
Associate editor.
Yeah.
And basically what that means is, you know, go out and shoot photos of bikes, shoot photos of tech articles, you know, install products on bikes, talk about what that step-by-step process is like. Why does this product make sense for the audience that you're speaking to? Go to the events, you know, just kind of live the life. And I absolutely loved it. You know, it was getting out there, excuse me, getting out there and like experiencing Sturgis for the first time and Daytona for the first time and all those kind of staple motorcycle rallies. And I was just like, this is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
This is my job. I'm going out and like partying with all these people and riding motorcycles for a living, right?
It was just wild. Too good to be true.
It was the dream. It was the dream, right? And yeah, I just started at Hot Bike, or I started at Bike Works and Street Chopper, and then I moved on to Hot Bike, and I stayed there.
How many different motorcycle-based magazines were under that one roof?
Oh my God!
Because I remember there's at one point in time there was
Super Street Bike, I think Sport Rider, Motorcyclist, Street Chopper, Hot Rod Bike Works, and Hot Rod Bike Works ended up evolving and morphing into baggers.
Oh, okay.
So right at that time, that kind of trend was taking off, you know, and then they made a magazine about it.
Yeah, yeah.
And I didn't kind of get into to being the editor of baggers until much later. So I was at Hot Bike, and then I worked there until I think 2012, maybe. It's like 5-6 years.
Yeah.
And I climbed up, became the senior editor there, and then there's just a shift in personnel. And then I moved over to Baggers, became the editor there, and did that for a few years, 3-4 years, I think. Actually, 4 or 5 years. I don't know. It's all kind of a blur, dude.
Yeah, the Baggers thing. I mean, there was when you had the Big Wheel Bagger thing kind of come out, there was a lot of magazines dedicated to that. You had the what was it?
American Bagger,
Urban Bagger,
same publisher.
Yeah. And then there was some other ones too that didn't quite.
Easy Riders did Road Iron. Do you remember that?
That's right, Road Iron. Yes, yeah. And yeah, so it's just like everybody was trying to capitalize off that. And I wonder if I don't know or remember it always being that way, where you've always had like your staple magazines, like your Hot Bike and your Motorcyclist, and kind of your generic ones off in the cut that's like all bikes or whatever.
Yeah.
But then whenever things started becoming tribal, it seems like when there was a scene, like we only do choppers, you know what I mean? Like Choppers Mag, or then it became only Big Wheel Bagger magazines, and you know what I mean? Like it almost seemed like it's like you had to niche down, if you will.
Totally.
To like captivate just a smaller audience, but have more packed in information for that audience.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like Easy Rider never really varied off choppers. You know what I mean? And plus they had so much content, especially through the early 90s all the way up till about 2010, 11. I mean, there was just a shop on every corner. I mean, they were almost as prevalent as chopper builders were almost as many as like powder coaters and shit. You know what I mean? They're just everywhere. So
funny. There are a lot of powder coaters out there. Not so much anymore these days.
Yeah, I think the level of skill has gotten up and people have had to shit or get off the pot basically in that kind of world. But
yeah.
Well, when the Baggers thing happened, I don't remember if the Baggers magazine really leaned into the Big Wheel thing or if it was, I can't remember. I have a couple of the magazines on the shelf at the house, but I remember seeing like an FXR division build on one of those magazines. And that's the one that I kept because it was kind of like an encyclopedia for some of the performance bagger stuff. And we got into that, 5 years ago. You know what I mean? So I don't know. Like what was the magazine like as far as, like when they say we want you to do this Baggers mag, like what are you thinking about? How do I create what these people are going to want to listen or read and see?
No, that's a great question. So Baggers evolved from, I think I told you, Hot Rods, Bike Works, right? But it was under the Hot Bike kind of biped, if that makes sense, right? So it was originally called Hot Bike Baggers. And then, a few years later, they dropped the Hot Bike moniker, and then it was just Baggers. But, I just was going to apply what I had learned during my time at Hot Bike to Baggers, and it would be obviously a lot more niche because it was one specific genre, and that would be bagger type motorcycles. And that's what I wanted to do with it, right? And I think we did that, and I hope that we didn't make it to where it was predictable.
Yeah.
Where it was almost like with Hot Bike, you're always kind of like exploring what's out there, right? What's happening, what's trending, and then what's next.
Yeah, yeah.
And
it's a very wide range of
huge range. It's very general in terms of, I guess, V-twin and custom, right? So anything that fits into that, which is a lot, can go in there, right? But it has to be like the best of the best. So I guess I just kind of applied that mentality, and then there was tons of content out there because there was tons of guys doing that shit.
Yeah.
And then it kind of broken up by geographical region. Like guys on the East Coast were doing stuff way different than what the West Coast guys were. Guys internationally were starting to get into it. Like we'd go to Italy to the Motorbike Expo show in Verona, and you see some shit that some Italians were doing or Germans were doing, and it was like, wow, this is cool. And it's global now. It was interesting to see, and it was basically just kind of telling those stories, and that was kind of my goal and my focus for
just trying
for
to
how I
fill
ran it. Yeah.
Yeah, like I'm trying to put myself in your shoes and think like I would probably feel like it'd be so much, I wouldn't say the word easier is the right way, but a little bit more manageable to try to stay within one realm like Baggers, and just find out everything that you can find. But you made a good point a while ago talking about how Hot Bike is like almost like a responsibility to also go unearth some of the other things that are emerging to be to shine the light on it for the rest of the country to know about it if they want it to be known. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So that's got to be tough to also have your ear to the ground, but also keeping tabs on what's going on over here, what's cool, what's kind of played out. And these are conversations I had early on with Jeff when he was around the Hot Bike stuff, and I'd listen to him like tell me how do you pick what you want to put in the magazine? Like that's always been like one of those weird things because where do you draw the line? I mean, sometimes a dude will have so much more money in his bike, but it just doesn't look as cool as the guy that didn't have as much money in the bike.
Yeah, dude.
You know, like, and then of course that's subjective. So
100%. It's a hard.
You're the most loved and hated person at some
absolutely,
points in
yeah,
times,
because and look, we used to get so many submissions to where you want to feature all the coolest stuff out there, but you got so much real estate to work with, right? And it's like, okay, of these, which make the most sense, right? Which are going to land in the issue and resonate with the audience, right? But still like that we're stoked on, like that we think are worthy of sharing with the audience, of making the magazine, right?
Yeah.
And that was fucking tough for sure.
And from on this side of the table, like when we got into a magazine, it meant so much. Sure. That's why there's plaques on the wall downstairs.
Totally, dude.
Totally.
It's like that badge of honor, right? Like,
yeah.
And if you made the cover, you were just like,
you're stoked. Like that was,
you're walking a little bit taller, right?
Exactly.
And
I don't know how to like.
And I got great joy out of that too, right? Yeah, for sure. It was like sharing that moment with somebody and just seeing like how proud they were of that moment, and it was cool from my side of things, Yeah,
that was one of those things I was trying to explain to people that maybe weren't in the custom side of things as far as building bikes to get magazines when they were still more relevant or prevalent, I guess is a better way. And it was just, I don't know if like in the back of our head, we thought being on the cover was going to like have the phones ringing off the hook. Yeah. And it might have done that back in the 90s and early 2000s, but it felt like you said, a badge of honor, or being able to be in that group of guys that got a cover of a magazine or just a bike in a magazine.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It really, it's always meant something. Even now it still means something when the publication's smaller. And you good? Okay. I thought you were snoring. Damn, we're that bad?
Yeah, shit. I mean, spice it up a little bit.
But no, that's one thing that's kind of missed when you get that message, especially like on social media. Hey man, we love your bike. We'd love to feature it. You know what I mean? Like even that, it's like, oh shit, like get a tingle. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's cool.
So when you came on board with Hot Bike originally, even before the baggers, like, did it feel like when did it get bought out the most recent time, as far as like the new publishers like the Bonnier, whoever that was that kind of came in? Yeah. And what does, and I guess maybe this might be a better question to ask right now, what does the publisher, like, what is their role? Are they just like they house the employees, the guys that have everything, but other than that, are they like something you have to go through to be a magazine on a shelf? Or
no, not necessarily. But yes, historically, a publisher is essentially, the company responsible for getting the magazine, funded and distributed. Yeah, obviously built editorially, but it was just a model that I think started to go away with digital media and social media, because historically print advertising, was the bread and butter of those publishing houses, right? And when that started to dwindle, personnel started to dwindle as well, and then it just kind of got to a point where that business model couldn't really exist anymore, because you still had the publishing houses. You just look at any media house, right? Yeah. Like the publishers all had offices in Manhattan, right? Like how much do you think the lease is on that building? Yeah. Or several offices throughout the U.S. or even internationally? I don't know. Yeah. And then you have personnel. You have upper management and mid-level management and, the grunts doing all the shit. And then all that costs a lot of money, right? Yeah. And it came to a point where it just wasn't a sustainable business model anymore. The cool thing is that I think, and that was, I think, the only really reason that print got to the place that it did was because that model stopped being functional.
There was, right? It almost seems like there was too many people making money that weren't directly involved.
Yeah. I don't think it was because there was a lack of interest in actual magazine product. I think it was just because the companies that owned them
they
couldn't figure out another way to like create that revenue that they were once earning, right?
Yeah, like they didn't know how to downsize accordingly based on the fact that, you know, when social media started tracking or websites started tracking, you Google all this stuff, it just created a different way to market and advertise. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
And it's more like it's more immersive. You know what I mean? You look at analytics nowadays on a YouTube channel or even on your Instagram, and you're just kind of like, God damn, I can almost like know everything about the people that are, you know, how old they are, the range, male or female. Like, there's just so much stuff that's like I don't care for it because I don't have anything to use it for. But, you know, if you're trying to sell a Toyota Tundra, then you're looking for males in this age range or whatever the case may be, you know.
It's a lot of data. There's a lot of data out there.
You know, maybe you might have some insight on this because this is something that I've been like reading into or watching YouTube videos about or whatnot, because that's how I get my information nowadays. Like the internet for the last 20 years has been all ad based, right? And things are slowly transitioning to subscription based across the board. And it's almost like it's scary for a lot of people that want to create something that's subscription based because most people are used to getting it for free. But it's all kind of changing because, I mean, everything's a subscription now. We were talking about it at lunch. It's like you had your Netflix and your Amazon Prime was it. And then all these companies decide like, fuck that. Every brand has a subscription now. Yeah. So you used to be able to, you know, pay like $100, you know, maybe $200 a year for almost an unlimited supply of things to watch on TV. And now you almost are paying what you used to pay for Dish Network or DirecTV for this stuff now. It all adds up incrementally, you know?
Oh, I know, dude. Same boat, right? I got 2 young kids, so it's like Disney Plus, Netflix, Amazon Prime, Apple TV,
HBO, Paramount, because you got to get the new Yellowstone that just came out.
Yeah.
And then you still got to pay for that too, even if you.
Is it out?
Yeah, the new Yellowstone.
Oh, it's already out.
Yeah.
Oh shit, I'm behind. But yeah, man, it's there's a lot of stuff that is subscription based, and it's interesting to see that people are, you know, spending the money, you know, because they value what they're going to get.
Let me ask you this question: if back in the heyday, when things were really good with all this stuff, did magazines make more money off the subscriptions or off the shelf? Newsstand, okay. Not including whatever advertisements go into it, but just newsstand sales versus subscription based, right?
Newsstand sales and advertising revenue is kind of the bread and butter, right? And then subscriptions helped.
Yeah.
They helped improve your overall circulation. Yeah. Which is, you know, a tangible audience that's sellable for print advertising.
Yeah, you'd get those little card stocks in the magazine. Yeah. Where you can like join, you know, like 12 issues for $9, and you're like, why wouldn't I do this? But I was the same way. I'd never subscribed. I love the aspect of going to the magazine stand and just seeing what was out. Yeah. And almost spending $30 on 5 magazines a month. You know what I mean? Totally. So it was fun. It was something to do. You know what I mean? I feel like an old man now.
How old are you?
I turned 40 a couple months ago.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So getting there. But yeah, so I didn't know if there was like this, like I never really knew 100% where, like if it was more ideal for subscriptions or whatnot, or if that would change now with the new kind of climate that we're in to try to get more people to subscribe, but obviously not at $9. Yeah. Which is usually what it seems like it costs to make a magazine now.
Exactly. Yeah. I think that's exactly, you're spot on, right? Like, first of all, newsstands don't exist like they once did. Yeah. There's just limited supply of newsstands, and that distribution model, there's a lot of kind of pieces to that puzzle, and it just overcomplicates things, I think, especially with a lot of, you know, direct consumer platforms out there for distributing products. It's just kind of like, it makes why would you go that route? Yeah. You know, but, you know, I think a subscription model absolutely can work. Yeah. You know, depending on what you're consuming, you know, and I think it can also work for a magazine. to where it's obviously going to shift from being, like you said, that $9.99 a year to something a little more higher, but you're going to get a more premium product.
Yeah.
You know, because of the frequency and because of, you know, the type of distribution that's available. You know, if there isn't a ton of outlets to get it, and there's only more so one over the other,
it's almost like it would kind of make sense maybe if there was a way to have some of them in a dealership, a Harley, or like the local shops. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like that seems like a good place to have it because motorcycle consumers are walking in the doors versus let's go put it at Walmart.
I totally agree. Yeah, those markets to where physical stand makes sense. I totally agree with you there.
Yeah.
But yeah,
how connected was like Hot Bike Japan to Hot Bike in general, or was it kind of an outsourced like branding thing?
That's a good question. I don't have a ton of information about Hot Bike Japan, but
one of the sickest magazines.
It's great.
Like
I'm a fan.
Right. I got like a lot of them queued up on like eBay because there's a lot of people that sell them. And dude, they're just. I was at a homie's house in New York and he had a whole wall of them. All these Japanese magazines, dude, they're amazing.
Yeah,
badass photography.
Yeah,
fucking. I mean, of course, I can't read it, but I'm just like looking at pictures, man. It's just such an awesome magazine.
It's great. It's eye candy for sure. I think they originally licensed the use of the name.
Yeah,
and I don't know if there was a royalty paid.
Yeah, that's what I figured it was, something like that, because obviously that's a thing that happens in this world, especially when you have ways that they can make money and it's not something that's going to compete with your local market. Yeah. So it makes more sense,
Yeah. But yeah, it's a quality book.
Yeah, I had some.
I'm curious how many they're printing these days.
I don't know. I don't even know if it's still going on. I just remember seeing like a lot of them. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wonder like if, like when you ever watch like the Blockbuster documentaries and stuff, how they kind of acted like they were too big to fail or be replaced, and it just slowly happened with Netflix and Redbox and all this other shit. Do you think that there was any part of the corporate side of magazines that kind of had that same attitude and wasn't frantic enough to find other avenues to sustain print longer? Or
partially, I think they tried. Right, I think they definitely tried to do the best they could, and I think the company that owned it up until recently did the best job with doing that and diversifying the portfolio to be more, omni-channel driven, right? Develop the website, which the website was already developed, but they actually spent some time in curating it and producing fresh new content and develop the social audience. I think you asked earlier, and I didn't really get a chance to mention it yet, but I guess the trajectory or the history of the different publishers that have owned it. So it was when I started, Prime Media, but that was, I think, a few later after when the magazine started that owned it. But it was Prime Media, and then it got bought out by a company called Source Interlink. And then Source Interlink sold all the motorcycle titles to a company called Bonnier Corporation. And Bonnier had all of the motorcycle titles.
Yeah.
Everything. Cycle World, Motorcyclist, Hot Bike, Street Chopper, Baggers, Motorcycle Cruiser, Super Street Bike. Did I already say that?
Yeah.
Sport Rider, Dirt Rider.
That sport bike picture up there was from the photo shoot of Super Street Bike. That was my first magazine ever getting was Super Street Bike.
Super Street Bike. Yeah. John Zamora.
Yep. I still talk to him now. Yeah.
Yeah. You still talk to John?
Yeah, he does all the lowrider stuff now. Big into Impalas and shit like that. But you remember Two Wheel Tuner back in the day?
Yeah, dude. Yeah. We did those too. I think we did like Super Street. Actually, those were Source Interlink titles. But anyway, when we got bought out by Bonnier, we became kind of the largest motorcycle media house, I think, in the world, right? We had all the biggest titles. And, they focused heavily on diversifying those portfolios, offering, digital
just
campaigns, social campaigns, any type of, events, right? Like Hot Bike Tour.
Yeah, miss those.
Those are fun.
Yeah.
Those are so much fun.
You know, it's about that like hot bike tour, like that concept is kind of the higher end things that I feel like the motorcycle industry is missing right now. Because even with Jeff's new direction with V-Twin Visionary, it's still kind of it's turned into more of a bike show than it was like how the hot bike tour was, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like there's been just a lack of reason for people to go all out with some real innovation in builds, unless you're a born free builder or you're building that FXR that you've been trying to build for the last 15 years, and you're finally going to have it done this year to go to the FXR show in Sturgis or something like that. So there's not a lot of those like, hey, Jordan, I want to pick you to be an invited builder for the tour we're going to have in a year and a half. And then you're just like, you're lit up. Like, what, man, I want to fucking show the world what I can do because I have a reason, you know? This also, like, the reason is also, like, this is a magazine, this is a media company putting on this event, so there's going to be media coverage. Yeah. You know what I mean? So there's value in showing up, if that makes sense.
It totally does. And I think, just for us, selfishly, it was a good way for us to get out there with our readers, right? And get out there with the industry people. And it was just a blast, dude. Yeah. Like, the camaraderie, in those hot bike tour events was just like, I don't know. It's indescribable in my opinion, just because of how much fun they were.
Yeah, 100%. And it was always, I only went to one, and it was actually, I think, the 2017 hot bike tour.
Yeah.
When it was like, Smoky Mountains all the way up to like Johnson City, and then there's a big fucking party down there.
Yeah.
And dude, it was a blast, man. And
it was.
Yeah, and but I also like the old way where they would do it, where they would build, and then each night where they're in a different town, like that was
fun.
I never got to experience that, and that seems like that would have been a strangely fun time to connect with the other builders that you're competing with, if you will.
Yeah,
but
it 100% was, and you know what? It should have never shifted away from that. Mm-hmm. It was just a lot of fucking work.
A lot of logistics in doing that. Yeah.
It was setting up, breaking down every day, starting again in a new city. But I think that's why it was so much more impactful for everybody that was there, because they were grinding. They were working hard, but they were also partying hard and having the time of their lives.
Yeah.
And then they'd have to do it again the next day. But it didn't matter. Like, there was something that formed there during those first few years of the hot bike tour where it was every day. That was just kind of like, it shouldn't have shifted from that, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, I could see it being hard to kind of maintain such a, logistically, every town, hotels, where's the party at tonight? And then you got, of course, some bikes breaking down here and there on the trip and shit like that. But it just had like something unique to it right now that made. We host our camp out, and we're always trying to think of new ways to do something to bring people together. Mm-hmm. That's not just another camp out in another part of the country. And those are the kind of things we thought about doing, but we haven't gotten to that point with the podcast and our media world of, necessarily like, we don't think we would do it for a competition. It might be a fun thing to do as like, hey, let's do this trip together. If you guys want to join us, we're here tonight, but everybody get your own fucking hotel. You can ride with us we can do a big group ride, do this, but it's kind of.
Yeah. And that was, essentially that was kind of the model, right? It was, you get a map.
Yeah.
Here's where we're starting. Here's where we're ending. We'll see you there. I'll buy you a beer when we get there, type thing, right?
For sure. Yeah.
But then it was like, set up. So the first year we did the hot bike tour was in like, where the hell did we start? Little Rock, Arkansas.
And Little Rock or Joplin?
No, that was the second year.
That was the second year. Okay.
Like the first year there was maybe like 50 people, dude.
For real?
Yeah. But it was awesome. And those guys, like pretty much all of those guys came every year after.
For real?
Because we didn't have anything figured out. It was a shit show. It was like, we're all just kind of like the blind leading the blind. Yeah. Right? Yeah. But it was fun to explore like what's possible. And all that kind of was driven by the Hot Rod Power Tour, which Source Interlink, owned. And when we came up with the idea, I think Jeff came up with the idea, was to make that a motorcycle type event, right? And then right at that time, Bonnier bought us. And I remember like we had a few months to put this hot bike power tour together, and we didn't know if it was going to happen or not.
Yeah.
And then Bonnier was like, yeah, we'll do it. We're going to do it.
Nice.
So it went off, and then it just got bigger and better over the years.
Yeah, that's why I miss it, man. Like I said, I didn't get to catch it. I think, would you say it was 2012?
2014, I think was the first year.
Yeah, I remember that now. Yeah, like I said, I never got a chance to kind of be a part of that. But I remember seeing all the pictures, all the different builders that were on those things, and even some of the bikes. I mean, as hard as he is to like sometimes, John Shope built some crazy shit that was on that deal, you know?
I mean, that dude won every year. I don't know and that was the other kind of tricky thing about, so the build off, right?
Yeah.
That wasn't an element on the first year. And then we came up with that. And then we offered a hot bike side build off and a bagger side build off. And then there was these two competitions existing within this overall hot bike tour concept. And then it just like, it was huge. It started taking off, right? But then you get to like, the way it was judged was, you know,
crowd
audience participation, right? And they had these ballot boxes, and then you find like some of the contestants were like paying friends and shit to like stuff the ballot. You're just like, come on, guys, really?
That's why
does it matter that much?
That's why it's always like when people talk about winning shows, I'm like, tricky. What type of show did you win? Did you win a like a peer judge thing? Because even that, like, I don't like the idea of it. I like the concept of somebody having like a real panel of judges going in and looking at every detail, and then almost like also going back and deliberately talking about. So what do you think, you know, was your favorite pick? And let's look at what we got for all these different, you know what I mean? Like a more real thing. That way, when you say, I won the fucking so-and-so show of Sturgis, I'm the king of the baggers or whatever, then you actually won a judged by judges competition versus winning. We live by a stereo shop, guys. Sorry. Instead of just because that's what it used to be like. The Paul Yaffe's was baddest bagger competition.
Yeah.
It was always judged by the contestants, and then there was a people's vote. So I remember guys running around saying, if you vote for me, I'll vote for you, like hoping to get more people. You know what I mean?
I do. It's silly.
And it just like takes away the whole concept of like winning because you built a better bike.
Yeah, like the best man should win, right?
Yeah.
Can I go ahead and
you
one of these?
Yeah. And so, there's that concept. But no, I liked it. And I always wondered like how much, you know, that was one of the other questions I kind of had is like I mean, there's the obvious role that magazines played in like, let's say, just the motorcycle culture. But I don't know, is there like underlying things that it really did to help kind of move things along that's not as visible to the average person that looks in a magazine as far as what it did for our scene, for like a whole culture of motorcycles? You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
It does. I mean, essentially, it was the source for like what was happening within that culture or that genre, right?
Yeah.
So like for hot bike, it was the go-to for like, what are the cool new products for XYZ bike, right? Like, how is it relevant to the audience? How can they use it to get inspired in what they're going to do with their bike? You know, whether that's like maybe a cool paint job or, you know, whatever. I mean, it was essentially like infinite, right? And it was just kind of always the source. And then, you know, things started to shift into, you know, a lot of different social media, I don't know, social
like
media
channels,
accounts or whatever that started popping up. And then, you know, it just became, I don't know.
You know what I've
it's
said
tricky.
This, I brought this up on the podcast a lot to kind of give people an understanding, and maybe you being in the magazine world as you've been, there was a point in time where we didn't have to promote ourselves because magazines and TV shows needed the content that we made, which is the bikes, to fill the magazines and the frames on the TV, right?
Yeah.
But then that kind of stuff went away, and then we became responsible, like self-promotional things using social media, figuring out ways we can get our work to the world. But it's almost like you used to be able to look at a genre. Let's just say the 2000s genre, right? 2000 to 2010, the bike world, custom V-twin world. Mm-hmm. Those guys just built the bikes, and the magazines and the TV shows told the world who was who. This guy's one of the baddest builders in America. He didn't have to say that about himself. Someone else put that crown on him. And so it became like a lot of their fame was not given to them, like they earned their fame.
Yeah.
But they didn't have to self-promote the same way that we have to self-promote these days. And what I would hear a lot over the last 10 years of being famous or more known on Instagram than maybe, Billy Lane's known because he was on TV, he built some of the most amazing bikes ever made, right? But it's like his audience translates both genres now, the TV culture, magazine culture of the 2000s, and then also now the social media culture.
Yeah.
When I've literally been referred to as that guy's just famous on Instagram.
Yeah.
Like he's never built a real bike. He's never been a legitimized painter, because there's nothing to legitimize us other than, being booked up for work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like
it totally does. And I think here, if I can offer my opinion, I would say you previously would be validated by another source.
Yeah.
The magazine, for instance, right? And essentially anybody can validate themselves and talk about themselves and promote themselves, but it carries a different weight when you get recognized and validated by an external source, the magazine, for instance, right? So I think that is what sets it apart from what you see now, right?
Yeah. Because there's so many really awesome, badass builders that suck at self-promotion.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And And I guess that's, we all have to adapt, right? So it's one of those things. But yeah, I mean, that's just one of the weirdest things, like a weird tangent that I just kind of popped back in my head because I've had this conversation with people so much. And I just always wondered, maybe that's why we're so eager to jump at the invited builder concept to anything. It's almost like the local Sonic drive-in bike night says we're doing a biker build off, and we're like, fuck yeah, we're invited to be it's like you said, an outside source of validation that is an amazing feeling, being selected to have your bike in a magazine, being on a cover, being asked to build a bike, being asked to be a judge at a bike show. Like, these things are all different types of validations that kind of help legitimize the way the world sees us sometimes, if that makes any sense at all.
Yeah. I think too, it's and being validated on the work.
Yeah.
Being validated on the end result of what you've created.
Exactly.
Not necessarily the name or who you are, right? And that was one of the things that I always enjoyed as being the editor of, the several different magazines, was finding those guys that weren't known and watching them grow in how they would create things and watching their careers
kind of blossom.
And it was cool to see.
And it's always paying it forward. It's like I try to and I'm sorry if it sounds like I'm being I'm up here and I'm trying to help. I've always been I'll do anybody's podcast, whether they have 5 listeners or 5 million.
Yeah.
Because I feel whatever I can do to help all these ships rise, it's always better. So I've always just told people I'm never going to be too good to do something or be on someone's spot, no matter where my career goes. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Just always feeling I owe it back to the motorcycle industry to maybe that's an opportunity that I'm giving somebody else that's coming up or helping validate them or their show by being a guest on it. You know what I'm saying? If that makes, I'm sorry I say if that makes sense a lot, but it's my go-to word today.
No, I think look, I love this industry, right?
Yeah.
It's the industry that I've spent pretty much my entire career in, and I want to see it continue on for 50 more years at least, I want to see, I have a son who's 10 and he's starting to kind of take interest in motorcycles and dirt bikes and even some of these e-bikes, dude.
Yeah.
Just get him on 2 wheels, get him out of the house, get him screwing around, falling down. You know, it does something to you to where it plants that seed, and then it just evolves from there.
Yeah, yeah.
And I mean, if there's any contribution I can make, is to help facilitate the longevity of this industry.
Same, 100%. What was the last printed hot bike? What year was that?
2018. Yeah, 2018.
Like a December kind of thing, or did it already start to go to like quarterly?
It went to bi-monthly. So we did 6 issues that year, and it was like November, December. Mm-hmm. And it was my last issue too, because it was an interesting time, because we published that issue. My wife was pregnant. Mm-hmm. My daughter was born. So I took a couple weeks off to, spend with the family. Yeah. I got called into the office like in January 2019. Hey, we're having to let you go because we're killing the Hot Bike print magazine. And I'm just like, what? What the fuck?
Yeah.
And I kind of wondered like if that was coming, because I saw, what was happening with other print titles and whatnot. But it just kind of happened, and then that was that, right? They kept the website alive. They kept the social media sites alive because they were still
generating some income,
generating revenue. They still had, good traffic, good audiences. But then they would just, I think, deliver, programs that were sold. And I think it just lost its soul.
Yeah.
Because it didn't have anybody that cared about it paying any attention to it.
Yeah.
But then they just it stayed like that up until a year ago, when I ended up purchasing all the rights and the intellectual property of Hot Bike.
So what were you doing? Like, what did you do once you stepped away? I mean, like, what was your role? Like, where'd you work?
Where'd I go?
Yeah.
I disappeared. I went to off the face of the earth. But I basically went, I took a few months, dude, and I just kind of like, I got a little severance package because I'd been with those titles for like 15 years. But eventually that money ran out, and I had a newborn at home, and I had to like support the family, right?
Yeah.
So, are you familiar with Arch Motorcycle Company?
Mm-hmm. Keanu Reeves thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's co-founded by Keanu
Maybe
Reeves.
300th episode, Keanu Reeves.
Oh,
that's funny.
yeah.
That's all good.
Co-founded by Keanu Reeves and Gard Hollinger.
Yeah.
Do you know who Gard is?
Yeah, he's an amazing builder.
Great guy.
Yeah.
Great guy. Super.
He's the guy that builds, right? He's the designer of
that
does all the.
I mean, it's a total collaboration. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I'll get into that. So, a position opened up for like sales and marketing, right? I'm a fucking editor from a magazine. Okay, maybe I understand marketing. Sales, I didn't have a clue.
Yeah.
Right? But I threw my hat in the ring, and sure enough, I got hired. And that was in like April 2019. Mm-hmm. And I've been there ever since. Right? So it's an interesting world being on the production side of things. So Arch is a cool and unique product because everything that they make is built to order, but they're a production motorcycle manufacturer. So they have all of the, certifications for registering a vehicle in the U.S., whatnot, right? They're totally compliant. But everything is like tailored to the customer. So it's a bespoke product that the customer kind of helps design in terms of the livery, the paint color, the graphics, some anodized trim finishes and whatnot, colors, things like that. It's like, here's the bike. Look at it as a blank canvas. Okay, now let us help you basically design what it looks like.
I feel like it creates a very, very unique like buying experience, but also building experience. It's like there used to be like this, there still is, like some people enjoy having a bike a custom bike built for them, or even a car for that matter.
Totally.
That's the process of the excitement, the progress pictures, the ideas. It's just you're involved in something.
Yeah.
It's a different type of purchase versus like walking in a dealership and going, which one, blue or red? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So there's just something to that, and I think that's a very unique way to bring that more luxurious experience of buying something more tailor-made to yourself to the motorcycle world.
Yeah.
Because you had that in the chopper world, but maybe with more tattooed up dudes, it might take your money and run, maybe.
Sure.
It's happened a lot back in the day.
Yeah, it did. It unfortunately. But I think you nailed it, right? It's a very personalized, unique experience. And the products, the motorcycles that they make are
pretty rad.
Fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Right? Like, they wanted to make the best version of what a cruiser could be using the best components that either they make or source from partners that make the best.
Like S&S motors in there, right? Or something like that?
Yeah, the base is an S&S 124, and there's two models that are currently in production. There's the KRGT1, which is like the flagship model. Then there's the 1S, which was just announced like a month ago to the public. But it's based off the T124, but it's proprietary to us because it utilizes our own oiling and air intake system.
Because it's a unique how the airbox setup is on those bikes, right?
Yeah.
It's like, doesn't look like a traditional Harley with an
not,
RSD cover on the outside.
There's no side draft air cleaner, right? It's all kind of hidden. And it makes it like a really kind of a tight, riding position. Yeah.
Because a lot of those some of those have more rear set or rear set controls.
The KRGT1 is forward control.
Okay.
Bike. The 1S is it's like a hybrid rear mid.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
But that one's a little sportier, a little more of an aggressive riding position. You're more upright, KRGT1, you're a little more in the cockpit, in the seat, more relaxed, feet forward position. But both cool motorcycles.
So how did you find out that you even had the opportunity to buy back?
It's crazy, dude. It's crazy, like how the world works, right? Like,
did you see it on like
middle of the
Craigslist
pandemic, like we're all kind of working remotely, right? And I didn't have to be in the office every day at Arch, and I think I saw a LinkedIn post that Octane had just purchased Cycle World and Motorcyclist and Dirt Rider and some of the other titles. No mention of Hot Bike.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I wonder if they got that, first of all, and it just wasn't mentioned in this article.
Yeah.
And if they didn't get that, like,
why?
What's Bonnier going to do with it? Because Bonnier, they sold off the personnel that was remaining for those titles, Cycle World, Motorcyclist, Dirt Rider. They went with the acquisition. And the rest of the people at Bonnier just didn't understand that audience or that market or whatever. So how are we?
We're good. We're only 54 minutes in.
Oh,
goes quick, doesn't it?
Time flies, man.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, I did a little more research, right? And I found out that Hot Bike didn't go with that sale. And so I just pinged a contact that I had at Bonnier and said, hey, I noticed that you guys didn't include Hot Bike in that transaction. What are you guys going to do with it? He's like, actually, we're not really sure, but it could be for sale or we shut it down.
Yeah.
I was like, don't shut it down.
Yeah.
Whatever you do. I wasn't even thinking about like money or how I could afford it or what the price would even be. Fuck, dude, I'm an editor, right? Like, I didn't know what buying an entire like
collection of
history of Hot Bike magazine, but everything in me was like, dude, just keep finding out and like keep asking questions. And then I just kept on it. And then sure enough, they're like, all right, we could let it go for this. And I was like, oh, that's what I thought. No, sorry.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, they're either going to shut it down. They're just going to shut it down. I mean, I don't know if there's anybody knocking on the door
Yeah.
aside from me. So I was like, I'm just going to throw out a number. And they're like, that's way too low. But we can do this. And I'm just like, holy shit. This, in my mind, is like, it's a lot of money. Mm-hmm. And so I just like, I thought about it and I talked with my wife about it. And I was like, I want to fucking do this, but I don't know how I can do it. Right. And so I ended up taking out some loans. You know, I had some help from a friend who was also in the publishing world who believed in it. And I bought it. Mm-hmm. And that was in 2021, last year. So I think like the transaction was finalized in like June. Mm. And then it was like, okay, you got the rights to it. Now what the fuck are you going to do with it? Right. So I think phase one was obviously get everything set up. The website that was in existence still had some traffic, but it was old and shitty and it didn't work. It was clunky. It was an old CMS. Mm. So we migrated all that to a WordPress CMS, and now I think it works really well. And smoothly, I think it's a better experience. Then it was like reactivating the social accounts and getting content flowing on those again. You know, the focus for us was, you know, more video content. Mm-hmm. And then it's like reestablishing that place in the industry of like, hey, we're coming back. Mm-hmm. We're doing this thing, you know, independently owned and operated. And, you know.
There's an excitement to that, though. Like, it's always been a great magazine, but now that it's not, there's not like this chain of command of people that have to say yes and no. It's like you're more connected to the community, and it's less hoops to jump through to make things happen. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like that's more of an exciting aspect of this, if that makes sense. So
it is, dude. And it's like, it's exciting and terrifying and all of that mixed into one. A lot of people are like, whoa, you're nuts, dude. Why are you doing that? Mm-hmm. I'm like, because I want to. I think so. In 2019, when I got called in the office, like I still had so much shit I wanted to do. Yeah. You know, that was the thing that really bummed me out, was like, but there's still so much more we can do with this fucking brand, right? Like, and so like now that we have that opportunity to kind of do that, it's what excites me to propel it into the future, right? And it's like, there's a lot of potential, I think, for Hot Bike to come back to where it once was, as like that leading voice in the industry. Because here's the thing, like when you're scrolling on Instagram and you're looking through your feed of like what's happening in the world of custom or V-twin, right? You're not seeing everything. Yeah. You're only seeing like what's in your feed.
Yeah, the 3% of who you follow.
Yeah, right. And it's like there's a lot of other shit you're not seeing out there, and I think that's what I see. That's where I see Hot Bike bringing the value back to the audience. Is like,
are you thinking about like, and we'll start to transition into like the Kickstarter and the things like that. But do you see the avenues like the website, the social, and the hopefully soon print? Do you look at it like there's 3 different places we can put 3 different types of content? Mm-hmm. That way it's not like I go to the website, but it's the same shit on the Instagram and the same shit we saw in the magazine.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like
it's a channel specific approach. Yeah. Right? Like the magazine is not a news source. It's a place for soulful, beautifully written, beautifully photographed articles, right? That are evergreen, that are timeless, that can exist, like a cool bike, if it's photographed well and it has a cool story behind it, it's kind of timeless, right? Yeah, 100%. And it can be presented like that. I mean, I don't see a magazine offering any kind of like news type content, so to speak. Yeah. I think it's like, theory pieces of how things work in the tech side, what's trending in development with future products. Yeah. where things are going, you know, obviously show a lot of the like archival shit that made Hot Bike what it is.
Yeah.
There's a
space
lot
for that for sure.
There's a total space for that. And there's a lot of like cool stuff that we can do now because we have the freedom to do that. And that's essentially why, and so to answer your question, like social media and the website can be that kind of, you know.
Yeah, with all the history and all the old articles, I mean, you have an endless supply of content already that can be revisited and re-spoken about. Maybe reach out to see if so-and-so is still around. You know what I mean? There's so much you could do with that.
Totally. Checking in with, with whoever.
Where did this bike end up? You know?
Yeah.
Like that could be a fucking, what? So where did this bike end up Wednesdays on Hot Bike? It's like you just kind of
Where now Wednesdays?
Yeah.
We'll figure out the acronym for it or whatever.
I like it.
But you know, like there's like so many things you can do like with that type of stuff. But what you said about the actual print is kind of the way I was like presenting to people that I started working with in magazines last year. Like this needs to be different than what it was, because I don't think that we have, like, people don't want what was out there. They want, like you said, something more timeless.
Yeah.
Something more meaningful, something more polished.
Yeah.
You know?
So it was pretty like you had your departments in every issue, which was like, you know, new products. You had, you know, upcoming event type stuff. You had your tech articles, you had, which were like step-by-step written pieces with photo documentation of how you got from here to here and what it looked like and how it did and whatnot. Then you had your bike features, right, which is like, you know, all the custom bikes. Tech articles don't make sense these days because everything's on fucking YouTube, right?
Yeah.
And it's a better platform to distribute that type of stuff.
Yeah, no one's going to go flip through the magazine. Which one was the Arlen S air cleaner? Fuck.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Which everybody used to do back in the day.
That
crazy.
was a source.
Like you hung on to it and you'd like earmark it or fucking whatever.
Yeah.
You know, that's all that existed, right? But now that YouTube's out there, it's like, it's a way better platform for that.
Right there.
Yeah.
Quick.
Yeah.
Especially when you're out on the road and you're having a problem. It's like, fuck, man, you don't want to call your wife and go say, hey, go get issue number 47 down and flip to the back. I think it's page. And then what did it say about where this thing is supposed to be on the.
What was step 6 again?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So there's recognizing that is an important thing for, I think, all brands and every type of genre, is to recognize when things phase out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Totally.
This is not important anymore. Like, not saying that it can't find a home on as a reel, you know, on your social platform or a home on the website or something like that. But when you look at like this polished, you know, magazine, like that's not a place for that. You know what I mean? I don't actually want to take that nice magazine into the garage and get it all oily and shit. You know what I mean? So there's like, you got to look at things differently. And I think that's why I was excited when you talked about bringing this back and the process in which you're doing it. It created an excitement because I already had an idea of what I wanted to see in a magazine. Mm-hmm. And after talking with you quick, it's like we were already on the same page. So I was like, fuck yeah, like I'm supporting it 100%. Nice. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think like that's just it, right? Like I understand that it can't be what it once was.
Yeah.
It could be a version of that, but it has to evolve, right? And it has to be an evolution of where it came from and where it's going, and I think it can totally work, right? So, I mean, thinking about it, right, when I purchased the brand, the magazine coming back wasn't a top priority for me, right? Mm-hmm. And the more and more I kind of sat with it, the more I wanted to do it, you know, and just realizing like it has more of a soul, if that makes sense. Just a magazine product. It has this like you buy a magazine, you now have kind of a relationship with that thing that you bought, right? Whether it's like, you know, you invested, you put money toward it, you now own it, it's yours, you can do whatever you want with it. But there's something there, right? Yeah. As opposed to just like scrolling where it's fucking in your brain and gone just like that. you know, and it's free, like you said, you know,
So-
there's no investment there.
I want to add to that because as someone that has spent a lot of time over the last couple of years really polishing and falling in love with photography,
Yeah.
looking at the pictures I take on this that big, it just does not compare to seeing it that big. Or even the size of a page in a magazine. What is it, 8 by 11.5 or whatever the case, right? And I think that so many people got used to seeing photos this way that like a photo doesn't resonate with people the same way it used to when you would open a magazine up and you have that full page spread.
Oh yeah.
And you're like, fuck, this is badass. Or you know, the cover, the back, like seeing photography in your hand versus on your phone or on a computer, I think that's the way to see it, and that's the way to appreciate it more.
Sure.
And that's one of the things that I've always, you know, like said, it's like when I started printing my photography, I just wished I more people could see it that way versus like scrolling on their phone in a, you know, 4x5 format on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
I
feel like people will fall in love with it more. Even if they were looking at it on my computer screen when I was editing it, I'm like, bro, if you could see it at this size, you would appreciate this photography a lot more. You would want it. You know what I mean?
You lose a lot of the detail on your screen, right?
Especially on Instagram, because when you upload a photo on Instagram, they compress it down and you lose all that crispness and
Totally.
and you can't zoom in and see better. You just zoom in, it looks like Mario. It becomes pixelated, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's just not it's the best thing that ever happened to photographers, Instagram, and subsequently now almost the worst thing that ever happened to them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes. What's your take on like your Instagram experience?
Hate it now.
You do?
Yeah, hate it 100%.
I hear that all the time.
I barely post things on there. I'm still addicted to it, so
Yeah.
I'm mindlessly checking it all the time for no fucking reason. But it's almost, I feel gross. Like I almost gave up so much control over my attention to an app that now is telling me what I'm allowed to like. You have to look at reels. You have to post this if you want to grow. And it's almost like I wish I could just pay a monthly fee for the old version
Yeah.
to, you know, just have a good time. It was more community based and
Yeah.
not so much like content creator based. And yeah, I've said it in recent podcasts, but it's not social anymore. It's just media.
Yep.
You know what I mean? The connectivity aspect it's harder to do now. And that might be because as you get more followers, it becomes harder to interact with people on a more personal basis. But, you know, like I used to love the fact of like meeting people on Instagram, going and finally, or seeing someone in bike night and seeing their Instagram and finding out more about that person. Right. And it's kind of lost to me now.
Yeah.
And then as a photographer, like if I take a fire ass photo of a bike and I put it on Instagram, but Instagram wants me to make short videos, regardless of the quality of the video, it's just make more short videos. We'll put it out there more. And you do enough dumb shit, eventually something sticks and now you go viral. It's like, it's not really, it's perpetuating more stupid shit instead of like rewarding growing in quality of things.
Yeah, totally. You're chasing that dragon of
Exactly.
like something else.
I mean,
going
like
viral, right?
every once in a while, like we were looking at a video earlier that I was laughing my ass off. Like I was saying, I do like reels. I don't like that that's the only way that you can grow on social media is by making 1 minute videos, right? But like the video that you were showing me right before Jordan got here about what's the page where they mash up people dancing to some off the wall music?
Oh, Eggs Tyrone?
Yeah. I'm like, this shit's fucking funny. It's a great use of that thing. That is a reel
Yeah.
that I feel like someone created something artistic in that.
Yeah.
As stupid as it might be, them doing it, it's quality. It's not like some girl doing this. And then bam, fucking it. Like that's,
Yeah.
it's hard. It's like, I don't want to be the dude.
It harkens back to kind of what was so great about the internet when it first kind of happened, just the funniness of it. And like the account's called eggs.tyrone, and they just mash up a video of somebody dancing with that's music on like the opposite end of the spectrum. And it's hilarious every time, every one of them. And it's you're scrolling through, and it's always a nice break when you see one. It's like, oh yeah, you know, you laugh. It's again, like you said, it's not a chick with her tits out. It's not a dude doing another wheelie. It's
Yeah.
I don't know. It's almost like an old school cat video when those
Yeah,
are fun.
dude.
You know what I mean? Just
I
something
do,
like,
yeah,
oh
yeah.
the internet's great, dude. The internet wins.
Yeah, and then you would share those and you know.
Yeah, I try to send I send a couple buddies fights and stuff too, but I try to send funny stuff that if it really makes my day, maybe it'll make yours. Not necessarily sad stuff or inspirational stuff, but just lighthearted stuff. Wholesome, I say a lot of times.
Yeah.
But I'm also a big don't bring negativity. Like there's enough negativity there that's my personal thing on. Like I never bitch about stuff, and I'll bitch about it to my people, my vent. But as far as putting stuff out there, it's always positive. I'm trying to either make you laugh or make you want to ride your bike or just do something, maybe share something I thought was cool. But it's never bring you down. It's never look at that side or divisive or anything like that. There's enough of that out there that you don't need it from me too.
Yeah, it's depressing sometimes.
What was your favorite, before we get back on the serious stuff, what was your favorite magazine as a kid? Whether you
shit.
subscribed to it or...
Thrasher,
for sure?
hands down.
Hands down.
Still one of my favorite magazines.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah. And still, fuck, dude, I picked up a Thrasher not long ago, like 300 pages.
Oh, yeah?
It's doing just fine.
Yeah.
Nice.
You know what I mean?
I haven't seen
Like-
one in a minute.
It's crazy how some.
And look at that demographic. Okay, maybe it's not like kids getting into magazine or getting into skateboarding. I'm sure there's a lot of that, but I also think that is a good example of what hot bike can be, right?
Yeah.
Of how that can exist too. And I mean, we have an older demographic, we have a younger demographic. It's a pretty diverse range
Yeah.
of people. It's essentially people that like custom motorcycles, performance V-twin type stuff,
Yeah.
some racing, what's happening with the events in the world, and all of that stuff, right?
Yeah.
What are the new products that are coming out? What's going to fit my bike? What's like the shit, right?
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. So, what were you talking about when I was down there?
Oh, I asked him what his favorite magazine was as a kid.
Man,
Thrasher and like Transworld Skateboarding.
Transworld was mine.
Yeah.
I used to love. My senior yearbook that you go, like, not the yearbook, but the one you go have everybody sign and say, "Hey man, awesome last 4 years." I had cutouts of like Eric Costin and shit.
Oh yeah, dude.
One of my favorite skaters when I was
Mine
growing up.
too.
And just in that book, like, I mean, I skated in high school, but obviously that didn't last too much longer after high school. But I used to love that shit. I had so many magazines of that, and Lowrider Art was a big one for me because I was into the art side of art.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I got to be in that magazine once, and that was a fucking huge honor.
Yeah.
You know?
That's awesome.
Yeah, there was a lot of magazines. Super Street when I got into import cars. And I remember the first time I ever went to L.A., I went to this shop in City of Industry we were picking up some front clips to take back to Texas. Mm-hmm. And there was this couple there that were kind of the early drifting, because that's right when drifting was starting to kind of really hit America. And these people were featured in Super Street magazine. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I've already read that article 5 times. I know these people as soon as I see their face. I'm like starstruck from a magazine.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Especially like,
I follow you on Instagram.
yeah, exactly. Hey, I got.
Hey, I read your magazine article.
Exactly.
I saw you in the magazine.
Yeah.
So that, it like, for me in Texas, growing up loving skateboarding, fucking import car culture.
Yeah.
Like, these are all products of SoCal. And then now fucking motorcycles, which I'd try to take some of that back. Like, motorcycles everywhere, boy, or homie. But at the same time, it's like you're always like, and then you finally go there, and it's an amazing place, just like you've always dreamed of it in the magazines that portrayed it.
Yeah.
The cultures, the skateboard culture, the import car culture, all that stuff. Motorcycle culture. First time I went there on a bike, I was like, "Fuck, this is everything I thought it was going to be." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. It's a different one.
I was a big Ranger Rick fan as far as magazines. No, that was early. Transworld Motocross and Racer X were a couple of my favorite from like my high school age. That was when just magazines all the time. Just,
Oh,
I
I did
decorated
like
my room with I'd use those.
totally.
Oh yeah, but
Yeah.
those were as far as the Transworld. But I was also a little bit more of a dirt. I love skating too, but dirt bike really 16, just grabbing by the balls, and that was what I was into.
Yep. So you're here now. I saw the campaign. That's what the Kickstarter campaign, and I've heard of Kickstarters quite a bit. And in the camera industry, there's a lot of companies that do Kickstarters for products. Like this phone case from Peak Designs was a Kickstarter that I supported a long time ago. Okay. And then when it finally happened, you get your shit, right? Yeah. But people, I don't know if everybody understands what it is. It's a form of GoFundMe, but more of a different approach, would you say? Like, how would you decipher that?
So first of all, and I think I mentioned, like, bringing the magazine back wasn't the number one priority when I purchased the rights, right? Mm-hmm. But like I said, the more and more I worked with it, the brand and whatnot, the more I thought, like, I think it's a good time. And I think because a lot of people like yourself, Jace, are talking about how they hate social media now, and it is what it is, right? Mm-hmm. But I do think something else can coexist with those things without cannibalizing those different audiences, right? But I thought about it because anywhere I go and people that know me ask me, when are you going to bring the magazine back? Mm-hmm. When are you going to bring the magazine back? And it's like, I've gotten enough of those questions to where it's like, all right, I would love to bring the magazine back, but let's throw this out there, right? Let's do this campaign to see if there's interest in bringing it back, if people would actually support it coming back. And so what a Kickstarter campaign is, and I didn't have a ton of experience with Kickstarter either. I'd heard about it, but then I started doing some research. And essentially, it's a crowdfunding platform, and Kickstarter basically acts as the kind of intermediary for helping you raise funds for whatever creative project you're working on. And you create the project, and you have these rewards available for people to choose, and it's, in different dollar amounts, and then you offer, tangible things in return for their support. So we created this project, and the other cool thing about Kickstarter, well, it's cool, but it's also kind of daunting, but it's an all or nothing concept. Mm-hmm. So you have to set a goal, a financial goal of what you're trying to reach to create this project. And then you have to meet that goal or beat it, or it doesn't happen.
So
so it's all or nothing.
Let's just hypothetically say your goal is $50,000 and you hit $49,999. I'm sure you could just pay it for yourself, like throw your own money into it. But you know what I'm saying? Like,
I do, yeah.
Something like so close that you'd almost like say, hey, I can work with this.
Exactly.
But it's not an option to be like, that's smart.
If you don't come close to, for sure. Yeah. It's exciting and scary. And you know what? It's like, I'm going to try this and see if it works. And if there's enough interest, great. And so I created the goal, I priced everything out like to a T, right? Printing.
So go through that gamut. Go through the gamut of all the things that your goal is covering in the first place. Like, because you ran it through with me and I thought it was interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. First of all, I set a $210,000 goal, right? And I know that sounds like a lot of money because it is a lot of money.
Yeah, ton.
But essentially that's what it would cost to publish an entire year's worth of magazines next year. And that would be done so on a quarterly frequency, right? So a spring, a summer, a fall, and a winter issue. Mm-hmm. Distributed straight to your mailbox. But essentially, that covers the Kickstarter fees. They take 10% right off the top. Mm-hmm. That's 5% for Kickstarter fees, and then another 5% for like processing fees,
administration fees.
Sure,
paperwork.
Yeah.
So that's $20,000 off the rip right there.
So there's $20,000 off, and then depending on the paper stock, and if I'm gonna do this, I'm not gonna distribute a flimsy magazine. I'm gonna deliver something of substance, something quality, something like that's impactful, right? Good cover stock, good inside paper, thick, that that photo or that story prints well on it, and it
Yeah.
just looks fucking beautiful.
Something
right?
as a reader, you're going to be proud to have that.
If
magazine
you
in
get
your
it,
shop
you're
or
like,
living room.
I get it.
Yeah, I mean,
I get it now, right?
Yeah.
And
Go ahead, keep going.
so, I mean, that just the printing and the ink and the paper and the distribution of the product, that's the expensive part.
Shit, so sorry. But no, I have high quality magazines over there, and then I
Yeah.
have your typical Walmart, magazine that's up there. So
Yeah, and look, dude, like when Hot Bike that last year, the paper stock, they just didn't invest in the quality, and it's the kind of shit that the cover just
It was
starts
thin.
curling.
Yeah.
It starts curling up because it's just shitty paper. It was thin. You'd like turn the page and it'd rip.
yeah,
That's not going to
it's
happen.
like toilet paper almost.
It was like I couldn't really take a lot of pride in that. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
I have my name on the masthead as the editor in chief, and like I'm delivering this kind of fucking flimsy product. It just that's not what I want to do. And now that I can do whatever I want,
Is there more or less printers based on the magazine culture that has kind of? I mean, it's still around, but it's definitely not what it was 25 years ago.
yeah, that's a
So,
good question.
I wonder if because there might be less printers, maybe that the price goes up and it kind of has to, like what you might used to be able to get like printed for $5 an issue is now $10 an issue, and that's kind of your run of the mill shit. And now to get, you know what I mean? Because
I do, yeah.
when you get a DuPont Registry magazine, it's like $20 magazine, but it felt like there was some girth to this goddamn thing.
You saw the value in it.
Yeah.
Right. And that's, how I think magazines have to exist these days.
Yeah.
Sorry, you're
He said girth.
That's genius. Yeah, the girth in the DuPont registry. That's brilliant, man.
But yeah, I mean, that's kind of how I think a magazine has to exist these
Yeah.
days. If it's like a flimsy package, then like
So
it's not worth it.
I've been doing a lot of research on this too because I want to do a yearly photo book with my photography based on all the traveling and all the things that I do. Because, I shoot a lot on my own bike and things like that, or a helmet, but I'm also shooting me and my buddies on our trips, bike events, other people. Like I have a lot of photography of the United States and the motorcycle community.
Yeah.
Right. So I thought it'd be cool to do a Sturgis to Sturgis issue, and then print after Sturgis and have it available come December as like a nice photo book. 2021, 2020, you know what I mean? So that's kind of what I want to do, but I understand the differences between obviously quantities too. Quantity makes a difference in the price, because if you're only going to print 100 of these, you're paying almost, $80-$90 a book almost if you don't do enough.
Yeah,
but of
it
course, that's
depends.
probably a little bit more than what you would do for a magazine, or not. I mean, I'm just kind of guessing there, but so you've already done some of the research, figured out,
I've done a lot of the research.
all the research. Okay.
Like way too much research. And like that was a number that I felt comfortable doing, to where I could kind of over deliver and under promise, which is something I always try to do. Like let that product speak for itself, and then you'll understand like where that figure came from.
Yeah.
But then you have like the editorial content, right?
Well,
The
how much-
photography, the articles,
Yeah.
the art direction, design, all that stuff's, it's not cheap. And,
Yeah.
and if you want the best, then you got to pay premium prices for that stuff.
Yeah.
Right. And then, whatever.
I struggle with that, and most of my listeners would know because we've talked about that with some other. I really don't want to talk shit or anything like that, but
Yeah.
I struggle with that, trying to talk about the quality of quality photography. I said you have two things that go in this magazine: words and pictures, right? You have to make good words and good pictures for this to be a valuable product to somebody. Not an iPhone. Don't shoot a goddamn bike in Daytona on the beach at 12 p.m. in the afternoon.
Yeah.
It's not going to be a cool picture.
With like everybody in the background.
Yeah,
and
just the chrome's
messy
blown out. Like there's just,
composure, yeah.
good photography can captivate you in seeing something and make you want like this bike, this angle, this light, all this, like it's like looking at art 100%,
Totally.
and you have to, I feel like when you have that kind of thing, it appeals to more people. Like there was that Meta magazine that was out for a while. I don't know if
Great
it is.
magazine.
So much high quality photography in there,
Yeah.
and it just it just like I just wished it was bikes that I liked, or
Yeah.
that I was more into, like as far as dynos and shit like that, right?
Yeah.
But you know, those cafe racers were amazing. You know
And
what I'm saying?
they were well produced, you
Yeah.
know, like high quality production on those shoots, right? Which you as a
Yeah.
photographer understand, right? That stuff it costs money, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
the lighting is obviously essential for a good quality photo, you know, and the photographer, he's got to
Yeah.
have the eye. And the
Exactly.
photography in the magazine is probably the most important thing because it is such a visual
Yeah.
medium, right? Especially when you're looking at cool custom bikes. That photo has to be fucking
On the
impactful and like kind of
Yeah.
speak to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I understand the value of that, and I'm willing to pay for it. So
Yeah.
it's just a matter of. So anyway, the Kickstarter campaign, we set this goal of $210,000, and that essentially just covers a year's worth of printing 4 issues, right? And it's an all or nothing concept. So like, if we don't reach the goal, then
January 18th, I believe.
January 17th.
17th.
So what's cool, I guess, for the consumer that decides they want to support this initiative, they go to the Kickstarter campaign, they click the back this project button, then they choose which tier they want to support with. They have to create a profile on Kickstarter and then put a credit card down, but their card is not charged unless we reach our goal, and it's not charged until January 17th, unless maybe a day or so later.
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah.
But so essentially you're helping support this project. You're bringing the magazine back for a full year, and you're going to get that product depending on which tier you support, right? And that's only if it funds, right? If we
Yeah.
reach our goal. And if we don't, then you don't get charged a dime,
Yeah.
right? And it's that simple. So it's all or nothing, which is, I wondered, like, is that goal too high? But then I couldn't do it if I didn't set a high goal.
I think so many things in the world have been behind a curtain as far as the cost of things.
Yeah.
That, like, you know, unveiling that and saying, look, this is what it costs to make a magazine, 4 issues of a magazine with writing, photography, printing, everything that's involved in that. Like, I think people are used to seeing so much stuff on social media or doing things on there, and it's free. And they're just used to that. And and it's like, oh, well, this is free, but they're making their money somewhere else, and I don't care because it's free for me. But it costs money to make things. It costs money in every aspect. Every adult that's doing anything with their time is either making money or losing money. You know what I mean? That's the only 2 things.
I do.
So, if some dude's out there taking pictures, he's invested money in some part and trying to get going.
Yeah.
So there's just a lot to it, man. And I feel like I don't see a problem with being a little bit more of what do they call it in the White House or in the government? It's more
Bureaucratic?
No, like it's like you could see into it more. There's
Transparent?
Yeah, but there was like a cooler way to say it. Very transparent about this situation where, look, yes, this is a business. Like, I bought the magazine back. I'm hoping to make my money back eventually.
Yeah.
But I want to bring back the print. You said you want to bring back the print, so put your money where your mouth is. Let's do this. You know what I'm saying? Let's make it happen. And then I wanted you to come on the podcast because I wanted people to hear that you want to bring back something special and not just another way to get advertisers to pay. You know what I mean?
Yes. And thank you for
Yeah.
bringing me on, because that's exactly what I want to do is, this brand has so much history and heritage to it that it's like it can sustain and continue to move forward and deliver something exceptional for a long time. This industry is not going away anytime soon.
Yeah.
There's still a lot to do. And I think a magazine is just kind of like what helps helps propel it into the future.
Yeah.
You know, which is fucking weird to say that in such a digital and social age. But I do think that there's value there, right? And I think that this is a way we can do it. And I think, you know, like you said, you know, that's why I wanted to also go this Kickstarter route where it's all spelled out. There's a level playing field. Mm-hmm. People can support in whatever fashion or capacity that they can. And that's it. There's no like hidden costs or fees or anything, right? It's just like, here's what it's going to cost to make it. Help me reach this goal. And now let's go do it. Mm-hmm. Right. And you know what you're going to get. Yeah.
And also like the January 17th is also about like trying to get the first, if we meet the goal, then you still want to hit that, you know, I guess it'd be winter.
April.
Like you want to get that spring issue out, that first issue, so that you can stay within a time frame that makes sense, because you don't want to drop 2 magazines back to back.
No, and I wouldn't, you know,
they're
like
quarterly.
That's one thing that I have a pretty good handle on is like the production process and like building out the basically the spreadsheet of what's going to go inside the magazine, and then going and executing what is going to be in there. And then, you know, planning for the year of what each issue looks like, you know, and that was something that I always just had a lot of fun with, right?
Yeah, and the other thing, the more, I guess, secure concept behind this is that, like, not that it would be a deal breaker, but, like, you're not some random dude that bought the magazine that has no experience in magazines.
Yeah.
Like, you're a guy that's been at the helm of this magazine while it was owned by another corporation and many others, and you understand the behind the scenes of magazines.
Yeah.
And you sound passionate about magazines to where you know the pitfalls of like what people really don't want in there now. And maybe like, I've always said this, I have no problem with advertising in magazines as long as it's cool.
Yeah.
Like what I used to love about Show Class magazine, remember that?
Oh yeah.
Some raunchy shit in there.
Sure.
But it was cool to see brands actually make like an ad for themselves that almost felt like it was a part of the magazine. Mm-hmm. Like it was tailored for the vibe in the magazine, not like a typical, you know, Photoshop, goddamn, you know, call now, you know what I mean? Like it was almost like, I can't find a better way to put it. It felt like it was a piece of the magazine. It felt like another feature. And I was like, oh damn, that's Dixon Flannel. I remember he used to have an ad in there and it was cool. Yeah. You know, and that's kind of the thing that I think, and I might be kind of like pushing that on you, but I feel like that's a way that working with brands to like make something unique also on the advertisement front, you know?
I do know. Yeah. And you know what, like there's something very impactful about a really good print ad, you know, if it's done well and it's produced. And like you said, it fits that voice of the brand that it's, you know, being distributed in. It can do a lot. And, you know, maybe it's an intangible, right? Because you can't necessarily see the return. Yeah. Like you can with the analytics and shit. Yeah. But it definitely leaves a lasting impression. Mm-hmm. And I think it resonates with its audience, you know?
If you think about
whether it's right then and there or a few months later or a year later, like, if it's impactful and it's fucking cool, it's going to resonate with you.
I think it's a way also, like you said, it's hard to track the way you could track with all the things nowadays, but we started talking about this podcast, or we were talking on this podcast earlier about how like there was a hot bike tour. There was so many other things that magazines did within our culture that being a part of it or supporting magazines helped bring something new to the table. I mean, we have a lot of events, right? But they all kind of sometimes become boring. You know what I mean? Like having new things come around, new ideas, the hot bike tour, the you know, the camp outs. It's kind of not a new thing at all, but a regurgitated old tradition in motorcycling. Yeah. You know, like to me, if it's like within my budget of being able to be in an ad in a magazine, then I'm like, fuck, like I want to make something cool and I want someone to see that. And it's more impactful because it looks like I tried to make something unique to represent my brand, my podcast or my pain or whatever, you know? Yeah. And I think it's an opportunity for all the people that's made money off this industry and used magazines and influencers and photographers. It's a way to just pay it forward, man. Like if you look at this, everything is like, this is the table the whole motorcycle industry eats off of, right? There's a lot of sometimes there's plates on here to help people that don't have anything to put back on there yet to get them off their feet. But when they start making some money, man, put some goddamn green beans back on here.
Yeah.
You know,
for sure. Keep
some of the media companies around. Hold them accountable as well. You know, don't just blindly pay people that aren't doing their job, but you know, understand that you have to put money that you make in the industry back in the industry if you want it to be an industry, right?
Totally. Yeah, and I think that's what kind of makes this situation for just me owning the brand and the rights and whatnot is that I understand that.
Yeah.
Right. And I know that it's not like that the funds aren't going to the CEO's, you know,
some dickhead
wallet,
in a suit
right?
that doesn't care. Some dickhead in a suit that doesn't ride motorcycles or doesn't
exactly,
care
dude.
about it.
Like I fucking commute on a motorcycle.
Yeah.
I ride every day. You know,
If you work at Arch for 10 years, do you get a bike? Like a Rolex?
I don't know. Maybe.
When you work for Rolex, they give you a Rolex after 10 years or something.
Do they
like that.
really?
Yeah.
Huh. I'll have to ask them that.
Yeah. Hey, what's the 10-year policy here? Do you have a 5-year?
Yeah.
But no, that's cool, man. And that's important because, you know, when you have people that truly do care about the culture and I like to say culture and industry. You got the culture, which is the people and all the things, and then you got the industry, which is obviously the parts, the
guys making the
manufacturers,
stuff. Yeah.
You know, so man, social media is great. It is. It's provided us a lot of things that we never had before. The ability to self-promote and things like that. But man, there's just something about still having some media source that represents everybody.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think too, just options, right?
Because
It's nice to have options.
we've talked about this a lot on the podcast. Repost pages started to become our new magazines.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the repost page game is, I think, kind of running its cycle. Like people don't really get the kind of shit they used to. But if you wanted to see a collection of said type of motorcycle, you can go to this guy's page, a Dynamite Crew or a Proper Baggers or something like that, and just get indoctrinated with this culture, right?
Yep.
So it had some form of the magazine feel. It was a place to go to get what you wanted, right? But
Sure.
I mean, when you got 400 different Dyna, you know, the Dyna Bar, the, you know, Dynamite Crew, the, you know, Dynaholics, and it just, and it's like they all repost the same bike. They just came out because they're not making content. They're repurposing content.
Yeah.
Right? As opposed to a magazine is going out and making content of the community. Mm-hmm. So that's a job. A repost page is not a fucking job. It's liked it, reposted it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's true. It is true. So, I mean, with just kind of getting back to the Kickstarter campaign, it's like I said, it's a way for us to find out if it's something that the audience still wants, you know, and it's our way of finding out, right?
Did you say you said some numbers to me on the phone that, like, at first when you told me the amount that needed to happen, I was like, most people would be like, fuck, like,
yeah,
it's a lot. But even in 5 days, I've already seen it going up $10,000.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I haven't had a chance to look at the tiers yet, but you said that, say there's a $100 tier, and you said if I can get 2,000 people to pay $100, then we have met our goal.
Yeah, yeah. Essentially, it's
you know what I mean?
Kind of that simple, right? It's like there's a $125 tier and then a $150 tier, and like if those two tiers get supported, and you get some swag too, you get like a hat and a T-shirt and kind of a cool little keychain. But if you support those, and we get like, you know, 1,500 or 2,000 of those, then we're golden,
yeah.
Right? And that's kind of how I was looking at it when I launched it, right? Like the Hot Bike social audience alone is at like 1.7 million, I think. Mm-hmm. And so if we could speak to a lot of those people and get them subscribing again, you know, then we can do this, you know? And I think to me, it seemed like a good way to test the waters and, you know, bring it back organically.
Because rather than like going and taking another loan out, that you might not be able to pay back because it doesn't work. You know what I mean? So this is a good way to let the people, you know, support something.
Yeah, I mean, it's always been based around the community, right? And the community of this culture. And, you know, I want to do it. I'm willing to do it. Yeah. I'm excited to do it. I just need the support from the community to also want it.
Yeah.
You know? And I think that it's there.
Yeah, I agree. Well, dude, you got 2 hours till your flight, man. So I think we go do
the good old flight.
We got to start wrapping it up, but yeah, no, I think it can happen, man. And like I said, seeing the $10,000 jump in the last 5 days, I was like, oh shit, you know what I mean? Like there's hope.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah.
And hopefully, you know, our listeners on this podcast will make a, you know, they'll understand how much it means to me if we can go and make this happen as well. And I don't know, man. I'm stoked. I think it'll happen.
I really hope so. I feel confident that it can happen. It's just a matter of
we're gonna have like a watch party as the ticker on the.
We need to do a telethon. Let's do a telethon.
I flashed the Kickstarter page on there a couple times, and it you know the main page with 25, 6, 13 so far of the goal. You got 37 backers and 47 days to go.
There's some time, right? You know,
that's pretty goddamn good for 37 people to get 20. That's
and it goes in. It shows. I looked at the tiers. It shows how many people are backing each tier and exactly what you get on each one. And as soon as I get out of here, I'm down for 150 for sure. You get a T-shirt, a hat, keychain.
Nice.
All issues, both digital and print, delivered right to your door. So. Sounds like a bargain to me.
Yeah, of a quality magazine.
I'm anxious to see this right now. I'm making a note of the number, and I'm anxious to see where it's at in a week.
We start like a post like every week. We're at fucking 50,000. You know what I'm saying?
You do something like was it Major League? Where as they get closer, they get the cardboard cutout of the owner. And every time they win a game, they take off a piece until they get her at the end of to make the playoffs. They got to get her naked. Yeah, they just keep winning. I don't know. We can whiteboard that.
I like it.
Well, Jordan, man, thank you. And like I said, it's been knowing you for all these years and seeing how you've kind of stayed in the motorcycle industry is something I appreciate a lot. Working with Arch, it's another badass brand that I might have to use a little connection with you to go get the builder on there because I've always wanted to talk to him about those bikes that he builds.
Oh, he's the best, man.
And
super talent.
But yeah, no, I appreciate it, man, and thank you for like taking the initiative to try to bring something like this back for all of us. And like I said, hopefully this podcast, can show up and show out. And I think we will. I'm doing the same thing that he just said he's doing. So
Hey, look, I'm just grateful for you taking the time to have me on here to kind of share this story, to get it out there to whoever would be interested in helping support independent publishing. It's me and the people that I know in the industry that can deliver the type of content that is, that you're deserving of.
Yeah.
And just to do that. And it's the year's done, right?
Yeah.
And it's exciting for me because I just, this is what I'm passionate about. And it's really.
I was one more question I was thinking about asking was obviously the Kickstarter will help make this one happen.
Yeah.
But is there like, how does it fall in place for year 2 if things all work out? Like,
there's a year 2?
Does it become like based off like getting them out there and then actually starting to sell the magazines?
Yeah.
And maybe get more advertising backing that you can kind of continue on to the next year, basically?
I mean, obviously step 1, get it funded, get it printed, let it
sell,
show the worth and the value of why you'd want to participate. And that's the goal, right?
Yeah.
And then just share it with as many people as possible.
Yeah.
My goal isn't to like make a ton of money off of this. My goal is to just do this full time and be passionate about what I love to do. And that's like telling great stories, producing something beautiful, and then sharing that with people that might be interested in it.
I mean, if you don't, you lose the art of writing in our culture, our motorcycle culture.
It's kind of lost already.
Exactly.
And look, I know journalism is kind of like a bad word these days.
Yeah.
But it can take on so many different forms, right? Like the shit that you see on CNN or Fox News or whichever side of the fence you fall on, right? It's like there's an agenda there, right? This is like just good storytelling that's factual and creative and compelling, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Because that needs to exist. Because it just doesn't.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I agree.
In my mind.
Same thing for photography. It gives it incentivizes more photographers to step up their game to be somebody that got to shoot some shots for Hot Bike Magazine. Yeah. To have a place to, as a photographer, having a place to put that photography is a harder and harder thing to figure out. And then it's also like a lot of the magazines that are currently around, they won't pay, you know. And it's like, you know, I know photographers that gets $5,000 to shoot a bike, and I know them that are just would be static at 500. You know what I mean? There's a big range. You know what I'm saying? But
there is.
It's without like supporting these things, and like if you know, all you have left is social media, and that's I told you how that feels to put all this work to get good at something so that people can see it on a 4x5 screen. Mm-hmm. It just doesn't quite, or 2x3 screen or whatever the fuck it is, right? It just doesn't. It's not the way I want my art to be viewed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean.
So,
100%.
Well, cool. Jordan, thank you. I know you got to get to the airport, and yeah, appreciate it. Maybe we'll be doing this again in a month.
Yeah.
With some champagne and some fucking whiskey.
Let's hope so.
And you can stay the night.
Yeah, I think, like, if I could just say one final thing, like, I'm excited about the future of Hot Bike, and I'm excited about bringing this thing back. And we just, you know, first of all, I want to a huge thank you to those that have already supported the Kickstarter campaign. I really appreciate, you know, you taking a risk and taking a chance on me and this initiative. And I just ask, you know, the rest of you, whoever you are, to take that chance, take that leap with me and allow me to prove it to you that it's worth it. Mm-hmm. So thank you for the time and thank you for those that have supported and those that will support.
100%. All right, guys. Thank y'all. And, peace.
Nice.
See ya.